This is a summary of the RIN combat system. So just go over the basics of the combat. It is designed to be very intuitive and kind of cinematic. So calculating hit point base, prowess, and vitality. This is for character creation. You can reference this page when you are creating your character to get the details on how to figure it out. It's pretty simple. Hit point base represents a character's overall ability to take damage. Each class has a HP base formula which is listed on the bottom of its attributes chart. When generating a character, follow the formula to calculate the HP base. Prowess and vitality. Prowess is a pool of hit points that is replenished after every battle. Vitality is a pool of hit points that is only replenished after a night's rest. To calculate prowess and vitality, cut the HP base in half. The prowess is the first half, and the vitality is the second, with any smaller half going into prowess. So if you have a 20 HP base, you have 10 prowess, 10 vitality. Prowess comes back right after a battle. Vitality comes back after you rest. So what this system does, it allows you to have attrition, where if you take enough damage to get into your vitality, you still have missing vitality, but the prowess has come back. So it allows the game to continue. One of the issues in earlier editions and certain you take damage and you got to rest. It really cuts into the narrative. And I understand there are some very pulp type things where they want to, you want it to be kind of also a survivalist game, but it's definitely not what RIN wants. And I think that definitely cuts into it, creates a lot of artificial resting. And just imagine Gimli and Aragorn and Legolas. Oh, I got to rest now. Spend the night here in camp, and we've got ninja. It's just if you look at like kind of the cinematic nature of Rin, like it doesn't fit. I'm out of hit points. I got to rest. But you still have some prowess. Like let's say you have a fighter who's got 40 total HP base. He has 20 prowess, 20 vitality. Let's say it's cut down to his vitality. He only has 5 left. He has 5 vitality, but then he gets his 20 prowess back after the battle. That way he can still go on. He's got 25 hit points, but it's you can still. It just creates a really nice dynamic that in play works well, and people who have played it like that a lot about Rin. Taking damage, being felled, and dying. All damage sustained is decreased by AR, your armor rating. It is then subtracted from prowess, and once prowess is depleted, it is subtracted from vitality. When a character is reduced to 0 vitality or less, he is felled, falling unconscious, and must make an immediate constitution check equal to the excess damage or die. If he succeeds on the check, then he will awaken a number of hours later equal to the excess damage with 1/10 his maximum vitality. So I got 10 vitality left. Let's say I have no armor. I get hit for 15 damage. That's 5 in the negative. So I got to make a con check of 5 or higher, or I die. If I fail, I'm dead. If I succeed, 5 hours later, I awaken. And if I had, let's say, 20 vitality total, I'd have 2 vitality. I'm just barely alive. There are some variants to this, some variant rules I could release to make it more deadly, less deadly. RIN has like a narrative method where if you want to just take characters through an adventure, some people like that. I know my wife really likes exploring a character and doesn't want it to just get killed and okay, I gotta roll up a new character. And people play RPGs for different reasons. So if you want a more forgiving narrative method, RIN has options for that. I don't have them listed in here, but if there is further interest, I have variant ways of handling death and dying and damage and such. Notes on combat checks. Awareness, stealth, attack, defend, and attribute checks are made by rolling a d10 and adding the relevant rating to the roll. The sum of the roll and the rating is the result of the check. So again, you're taking a d10, you're adding the modifier, that's the result. Pretty straightforward. And the d10 actually is a nice die, keeps the numbers low and simple, and makes for pretty actually quicker resolutions even than the d20, even though I think the d20 is a great method. I mean, d20s are awesome, but d10 and RIN is a nice change, and it's definitely simplified some things. Awareness rating is equal to intellect. So your intellect is a +1, you have a +1 awareness. Your intellect, you're a barbarian, you have a -3, you have a -3 awareness. That's a little simplistic because in reality, the keenness of your senses doesn't necessarily mean just because you have a strong mind that you're aware of things. It does function well, and there are some classes that get exceptions, like, for instance, the the barbarian can take one of his subfeatures that lets him use his survival in place of awareness when he's in the wilderness. So he's in his element. He's actually that we normally has a -3. Now he's got a survival of +2. Now he's a +2. So there is some understanding of that. But functionally it functions. Kind of people who are less cunning, less strong in the mind. They're not as aware. It's a kind of a generality, but again, not necessarily true in reality. If the check is equal to, okay, so rating is equal to intellect, it is made against a hidden monster's concealment. If the result is equal to or more than the concealment D, then the hidden monster is spotted. So again, pretty simple. The creature sneak up on you has a 9, which is high for concealment. You need an awareness. The result needs to be 9 or higher to notice him. Hidden creatures, you can do it for hidden objects too. It's not really meant to be the perception. I think perception is overdone ever since third edition. It's kind of nice to have that rating, but it's just in play, it's actually overused. I find it's used for everything. It's really, I don't recommend it that way. Just mainly it's for you, hit a creature sneaking up on you to notice it. It's really kind of more of a combat thing. Initiative. Rating is equal to agility. To begin combat, a character makes an initiative check against the monster's initiative D. If his check is equal to or greater than the monster's D, then he acts before the monster. If it is less, then he acts after. A lot of different thoughts on initiative, a lot of different ways to do it. A lot of GMs are going to have their own custom initiative system. I recognize that, and that's fine. But RIN's pretty simple. It's a check against the difficulty. If you succeed, you go first, and it's all kind of set. It's pretty simple and straightforward, and you just make a check. If you succeed, you go first. If you don't, you go after the monster. Pretty straightforward stuff. Stealth. Rating is equal to agility minus encumbrance. It is made against the monster's awareness difficulty. If the check succeeds, the monster remains unaware of the hidden character. So encumbrance comes from your armor. So magical armors can get their encumbrance reduced. But yeah, it's an agility check, specialized. It's a stealth check. It's based off of agility and encumbrance, and pretty straightforward if you're trying to sneak up on something. Now, sometimes I'll have a stealth check in play that just make a stealth check because you kind of are walking just to kind of notice it and kind of be stealthy before you come along. Just kind of a general rule on how stealthily you're moving along. It can be used in that way, kind of as a passive stealth check. Armor rating is determined mainly by armor set worn. Incoming damage is decreased by armor before being applied to prowess and vitality. Generally, ranges from 0 to 3, depending on what kind of armor. It can get up to even 4, 5, 6, even higher with special abilities. Attack is made. This attack roll is made against the monster's defense difficulty. A result equal to or higher than the D means the attack hits and deals damage. AT is equal to strength or agility plus the weapon's modifier as listed in the equipment chart on page 19. Melee weapons use strength or agility, whichever is higher. Unless the weapon is heavy, then it uses only strength. Thrown attacks may use agility, strength, or agility, and missile weapons use only agility. So again, pretty simple. Strength or agility, unless it's a heavy weapon, the idea is that you have to use strength because it's so heavy. You can't really use it in an agile way. And then thrown weapons use either strength or agility, whichever is higher. And then missile weapons like bows, you're only using agility just because it's the keenness of your agility is what affects it. Critical attacks and fumbled attacks. When the die shows a 10 on a character's AT roll, the character's attack automatically hits the monster, gains an extra damage die, and ignores armor. So hits the monster, gains an extra damage die, and ignores armor. If you show 1, you miss automatically. There are lots of variants for fumbles and crits. These are the basics in RIN, and they function nicely from what we found. Defend is made against the monster's threat. A result equal to or higher than the D means the monster attack misses. A result lower than the D means the attack hits and deals damage. Defend is determined by agility and modified by the weapon in the main hand and a buckler or shield if used in the offhand. Critical defense and fumbled defense. When the die shows a 10 on the character's defend roll, the monster's attack automatically misses. When the die shows a 1 on the character's defend roll, it hits automatically and ignores armor. I don't give monsters extra damage dice. Typically, monsters hit very hard in RIN, and it just really isn't necessary. Ignoring armor is a big enough of a penalty. But again, there are always variants on this. If you want to make fumbles, crits more deadly, I can release all kinds of variants and expanded content. But as this functions, from playtesting, it does work really well. Damage. Once an attack hits, it deals damage, which is subtracted from the combatant's hit points, or their vitality, Ichor if they're undead, animation if they're automatons. Damage is determined by weapon as listed in the weapon chart. Strength, if positive, is added to the result of all weapon damage rules. And that's for characters. Monsters have their own set rules for damage. Damage types. Damage is divided into various types, and each behaves differently. Not all forms are exclusive. So these are fairly standard, but a little bit different from some system. You have your cold, fire damage, so pretty straightforward. Elemental damage. Holy, from the gods. So this is the most powerful damage. It ignores armor, resistance, and immunity. So there's nothing that stops holy damage. It cannot be stopped. You can have an ability that like teleports you away and it doesn't actually strike, or an ability, but nothing. You can have an ability that halves damage. It's not gonna. It just cuts it in half. But as far as your immunity, your resistance, your armor, it just does damage. You get hit for 20 holy damage, including monsters. And a lot of like undead have a lot of powerful resistances and immunities, so it cuts through all that. Nothing stops the power of the gods. By far the highest, most powerful damage. Lightning, just lightning damage. It always ignores armor. That's one thing about lightning damage. It always ignores armor. Magical, from a magical source, usually a spell or spell-like ability. If the damage type for a spell is not listed, it is treated as untyped magical damage. Sometimes you'll have that, but it's just from a magical source. The spell usually is a spell-like ability that some classes have. Non-magical, from an ordinary weapon or mundane source. So basically, it's just going to be like normal damage from a weapon that's unenchanted. Necrotic, from death magic, often targets strength. Poison, from venoms and toxins, often targets constitution for characters when they're making checks against it. Psychic, from a psionic source, ignoring armor and often targeting intellect. So this is another one, psychic. It's pretty rare. There are some creatures that use psychic damage, but it also ignores armor. Vampiric, damage that feeds upon life, heals the attacker for an equivalent amount. So it's key that the vampiric, it's like necrotic, it's kind of death magic. It's actually drawing their life and turning it into healing for the person who's inflicting the vampiric damage. So quite powerful. Note on magical weapons. This is an important note. Damage coming from the weapon itself surpasses resistance to magical damage, though magical effects placed upon the weapon, such as those from the Reed spell, do not. So if I have a magical weapon and I have a creature that has resistance to magical damage, the magic weapon isn't treated as a magic. In that case, it's just treated as so it's going to get through that. So you're not really penalized. Like you're actually better off. You'd actually be better off hitting with a non-magical weapon than a magical in that case, which would kind of invert the purpose. Magical weapons are more effective. However, enchantments on the weapon, let's say you put a Reed spell that gives 44 extra cold damage or some other enchantment, that would be halved because it's purely magical in nature. So a little important note, just so that the barbarian with the big magical war axe isn't penalized when he's hitting the magic resistant. He's not better off just grabbing a regular war axe. It is more. There's a little nuance there that is necessary. Ill effects. Attribute checks from ill effects. Very important in RIN. Certain monsters can inflict ill effects instead of or in addition to damage from their attacks, such as paralysis. Attribute checks are made to avoid, diminish, or end such effects. There are generally two types of ill effects: ongoing and set duration. For an ongoing ill effect, the character rolls to avoid the effect. If he fails, he rolls again each round with a cumulative +1 bonus until he passes and the effect ends. Once he has passed, he remains immune to the effect, though not to associated damage. For a set duration ill effect, it lasts for a listed amount of time, such as 1 round or 1 hour. So again, if you're charmed, you make a charisma check of 6 and you fail. Next round, you'd be charmed for the 1 round, and then the next round you make that check with a +1 bonus and +2, +3, +4 until you succeed. Or it's just set duration. So you're charmed for an hour, you're charmed for a day, you're charmed for a week, and there's no way to end it other than through some special ability. And this is a description of ill effects. There can be more. This is a pretty solid list of all of them. You have blindness, charm, dance, domination, fear, hurl, illusion, immobilize, insanity, paralysis, petrification, polymorph, sleep, slow, snatch, stun, swallow whole, weaken. Again, these can be expanded out. There can be tons of them, but it's just giving you kind of a basic description of what they do and how they affect people. Resistance and immunity. Resistance against the damage type cuts it in half, rounding down before being applied to armor and hit points. Immunity to a damage type or ill effect renders a combatant impervious to its effects. So again, pretty straightforward. You have resistance to damage, to poison. You take 21 poison damage, you take 10 because it's half rounded down. If you're immune, you take nothing. So again, pretty straightforward. Actions in combat. Combat round. A combat round lasts about 6 seconds. It's just basically a kind of an estimate. During a round, each character can perform one action and one movement in order of initiative. A monster can move and act according to the rules listed on its stat block. Action. A character may perform one of the following actions on his turn. Make one attack with an equipped weapon. Use one class feature. Use one item, such as a spell scroll. Those are general. There are lots of exceptions to that, but in general, those are your basics. Many class features and items may grant additional actions. For instance, the character with a weapon in his offhand may make a second attack with his offhand weapon, and a paladin may use his healing proficiency in addition to other actions on his turn. It says that in the healing proficiency that can be done in addition to other actions, so it can be done. It doesn't really get RIN does not get into a kind of a crazy action economy, bonus actions, move actions, quick actions, all these. Just basically you can act and you can move, and then there are other little things in addition to that based on your abilities from your classes. Movement. A combatant may move up to 30 feet in addition to performing his action for the round. If he does not perform an action, then he may move twice as far. So if you want to just basically sprint out of an area, you can spend your time just running. And 30 feet is just a guideline. RIN doesn't really emphasize the battle grid at all. Generally, if it's in doubt whether or not you can reach an enemy, I just have an agility check. All right, if you can reach the enemy in this turn, if you succeed in an agility check, and agility is used to kind of gauge that. Using a potion. So this is one exception. One potion may be used once per round in addition to all their actions and movements. This came out of play testing. I tested a bunch of different methods, but yes, this is kind of makes potions more powerful, more useful. And if you're drinking a potion, now there could be other items like, let's say, the wafer of elven way bread, whether or not that is permitted to be used. It's really up to the GM. I'm not going to go through and just list a bunch of yes or no's. But in general, potions you can drink them in addition to your action. And certainly healing potions. So again, that is kind of the GM to dictate exactly that. But yeah, in general, it's just a free action. Other combat rules. So this is just a little thing of like things that have come up. Just so if you want to have an answer for them. Hidden attacks. When a hidden combatant attacks a foe, he gains +2 AT to the first attack. If the foe is defenseless, such as sleeping or paralyzed, then the attack hits automatically and is critical. If a monster is hidden, then the threat and D of his first attack increases by 2. So again, just +2 to your offensive abilities with your monster or a character. Situational combat bonus. Situations such as charging, flanking, swinging from a rope, being prone, or climbing may add bonuses or penalties ranging from -2 to +2 as determined by the GM. Again, it's pretty straightforward stuff. Ranged combat penalties. These are some specific penalties. Long range penalties -4 AT. Using a ranged weapon while a foe is within melee range is -2 AT. Cover and concealment, such as being behind a wall or firing into fog, provide -1 to -4. So these are just a little list of bonuses and penalties that come up in battle. Missile weapons and mobility. When a combatant armed with a bow or other missile weapon moves out of melee range of a foe, the foe gains a free attack. So I should also say if you're unarmed. So if you just you don't have a weapon out and you go away, or if you have a ranged missile weapon, because they're not really intended for defensive purposes, it does provoke a free attack. And this is the only real baseline free attack that you get in RIN. Generally, you don't get free attacks for mobility. Switching weapons. At the start of his turn, a character may change to a different set of weapons. For instance, he may switch from his bow to a spear and shield. So just at the start, and this kind of prevents you from gaming the system where I start off with a spear and shield, I run away, I equip my bow, I fire, then I put my, just all of that kind of, if somebody wants to min-max all that, which most characters probably don't, but if you did want to do that, this just prevents it. Start of your turn, you can switch the set, and then that's it. Mounts. A horse grants the rider ride 60. I don't have to necessarily read this, but it gives the advantages of mounts or war horses. You can also get more powerful mounts like Pegasi, Griffins, a dragon, even in some crazy situations. But it lists the bonuses and penalties for that. Bonus prowess and vitality. Some abilities grant bonus prowess. Such bonuses are always lost first when sustaining damage, do not return. and are not cumulative. The same is true of bonus vitality. So again, it's just a little extra pool that goes right away. The Bard has an ability like that. The Elven Waybread has a bonus like that. So just so you know that's how it functions. Note on charms, player characters and NPCs who are character classes may be immune or receive checks against charms from other character players per GM discretion. So again, this is really kind of like you could kind of think of them as essential NPCs. I know sometimes it seems kind of arbitrary to do that, but it's similar in D&D. Like you'd have some characters are so many levels ahead of you, you can't really have a chance to charm them. Like 12. Like you have certain spells like that. Like if they have more hit dice in this, they're not even affected by it. So it's just a way for the GM to have that, or at least to have a check against it. And certainly for player characters, the, the classes in RIN aren't designed to fight against each other. I didn't balance them or design them that way. So if you are using abilities, I would give chances to resist them. I'm not really designed for like parties to turn on each other, and I don't generally play those kinds of games. But if it does come up, someone gets charmed or something, the GM can throw in a check to resist it. And again, I'm not going to detail all the monsters don't have all set. Their stat blocks are very simple, and I don't have this is up to the GM how he wants to handle that. And actually, also other magical effects can be granted kind of an inherent resistant because you're a player character or kind of an essential NPC. Effect stacking. Generally, effects from the same ability do not stack, only the highest applies. So pretty common. You can't just have like 5 blesses, you plus 5 to, they're just one. If it is a blessing, it can be a total of +1. You could have one effect of instance of something. You can't just stack like 7 read spells. So you're doing like 30d4 extra damage or something, which pretty common sense stuff. But again, that's the general rule. And that's it. Those are the general rules for combat.